Touchdown!
The following video was brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Save 10% on world-class hosting or any GoDaddy product when using the code POD88 at checkout. Now, the latest.
Look at that. We are live as live can get, coast to coast, border to border on iHeartRadio today. Of course, AMFM247.com. Tune in, iTunes. You can find us each and every day over there at JiggyJaguar.com. And we have got a great guest with us today. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. Did I butcher that last name?
You did a
'Cause I
great
bet I
job.
did.
It's actually Bedenbaugh, but I'll answer to it. That's
Bedenbaugh.
perfect.
Well,
That's good.
you know,
It's
it is on par with me being Jiggy Jag the Ugly American. So I butcher all sorts of things.
that's
But
all right.
Mike is an author, and he is an amazing author. He has a book called Reviving Our Republic, 95 thesis for the future of America.
Yep.
And joins us live here on our big program. So, Mike, the website, of course, is revivingourrepublic.com. Talk to us a little bit about this book and why you decided to write it, my friend.
Well, I've always been. I grew up here in South Carolina, and I have always been fascinated with politics. I went in the U.S. Navy after I dropped out of college, and the Navy taught me that an education is important. So I went back to school, and I took international studies. I was fascinated with Russia, so I've always lived a life of inquisitive citizenry. Right, of just what are my responsibilities with being a citizen, and very conscious of that. And I lived in New York, I lived in LA, I came back to Prosperity, I ran for town council and was on it, and got on town council. And so as I saw our national politics getting more and more vulgar and consumptive and spectator sport, I realized we were getting ready to go into a place that was very dangerous for governance of a free people. I'm a big student of history, as I mentioned, and in the 2016 I read an amazing book about the biography of Washington, and then dug into Washington's farewell address. And in reading that, I realized he basically wrote an owner's manual for our republic. I mean, he sat there. I come from a world of preservation. I did a lot of different things in my life with a marketing company, but for 20 years, I ran a group called Preservation South Carolina. And I think preservation of historic places is really important for community and culture and all of that. So I look at it through that lens of where, I looked at our republic as a structure that was built and planned very well, has an amazing foundation, but like any building, it needs a maintenance manual. And Washington gave us a maintenance manual with the farewell address. He said, "Don't do da 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 da. Watch out for entangling alliances." All of these things, and especially the corruptive influence of powerful parties. He was very emphatic about, and also the concept of false patriotism. So I looked at that and saw what was going on. So it took me a few years to really gel it together. And when I decided to run as an independent in Congress, in my district here in South Carolina, I took them and put them down into I wrote the book. Now, I come from an area where a lot of Lutherans are, and if anybody knows religious history, the 95 Theses is what Martin Luther nailed onto the church in Wittenberg to break the corruptive influence of 16th century Catholic Church. And that's what I just thought that was a perfect parallel. It's time for another 95 Theses on how our federal government has been corrupted. And this is not party focused. This is in general the whole thing. I think over the past century has slowly degraded into basically an unworkable system, which is why we're in such a mess now and nothing's working. And so I distilled out of the 95 Theses 40 policy points that I just listed. And I used them in any of my talks when I ran for Congress. And, I had as many Democrats as Republicans in the room listening. And everybody I talked to when I campaigned agreed with 80% of it. Now, sometimes it was a different 80%, but I'm like, this is something that can get a toehold of people coming together. And so there you go. That's why I wrote it. This little book right here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Mike, this book, incredibly well written. You put a
Well,
lot of
thank
time
you.
and effort into this book. What do you want readers to take away from your writing?
That they are in charge of the choices being made. One of the things that really upsets me when I sit here and hear how people talk about, well, I had no choice, either voting for one president or voting for another. I just had no choice and I had to do I'm like, everybody has a choice. And the system has created this bipolar system for a reason. And not enough
Yep.
people realize you can stop it if you just stop. And, I ran into the issue of groupthink and powerful party, corporatized party politics here in South Carolina when I ran for Congress, when I realized it would be impossible for me to run as a Republican. My first president I voted for was Reagan. And so I consider myself a constitutional conservative. But as I understand constitutional conservatism, I see both parties betraying that totally. So the machinery, we have a Republican machine here, just like we have a smaller, not near as powerful Democratic machine. We have a James Clyburn machine here that's focused on
Yep.
Clyburn's, keeping him in power. But we have a Republican machine set up by Lee Atwater and Strom Thurmond before him. And so it was no way I could break in
Yeah.
through that way. So that's why I ran as an independent. And to see the amount of money from outside South Carolina that funded, um, the Republican candidate, it was just astonishing. $900,000 was poured into her account from
Yep.
outside South Carolina. So we've got a lot of work to do to try to change and make some adjustments to make this system work better.
We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. He is the author of Reviving Our Republic. Website, of course, is revivingourrepublic.com. Mike Bedenbaugh is today here in our broadcast. And so, Mike, this book, you've put a lot of time and effort into the book. How did you write this thing? Did you use an outline? Did you use notes? What was your writing process like?
I started out with figuring out, I knew I wanted to use the theme of 95 Theses. I mean, I'm such a history nerd. I got stuck on that. And so many people said, what are you doing? 95? And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just who I am. I just like the I just like the poetry of
That's
that,
just who I am.
And there's a lot of Lutherans in this country, they'll get it.
Right.
But so anyway, I started with those 95. I dissected Washington's farewell address and I just wrote an outline. And then I wanted to make it not policy as much as structure, right? Which is why I had so many Democrats and
Right.
Republicans, unaffiliated conservatives and liberals, liking the book, because it's really about structure. It doesn't go into these big picture policy issues, because I think if we had our structure working better, the policies will take care of themselves. And so, but even before I got to the 95, I wanted to break it into 4 sections. And 3 of them is the big things Washington talk about: fiscal responsibility, um, party corruption of party politics and false patriotism, and foreign involvement. Those were his 3 big things that we had to worry about. I added in corporatization of society and how corporations have turned into monopolizing our economy, to where corporations are almost a state actor. And what I realized was the founders, I mean, they were the most enlightened political theorists that had ever been born and ever studied in the 1700s. Right out of the Enlightenment, they understood, they read all the great thinkers from Voltaire to John Locke, and they understood what they knew in the 1700s. They didn't anticipate the rise of mega corporations that could influence and poison the system through money. And they
Yes.
also didn't understand.
Legalized bribery is what it's called.
Well, that's it. And they also didn't anticipate the and they didn't even write it into the Constitution. I think they would have if they would have known what party politics would do and how poisonous it would get. And that's why Washington focused so much on it in his farewell address, because even though they didn't think about it as much in the Constitution, he realized it during his tenure in his 2 terms. He saw it almost destroy the way people were talking to each other. And that's why he spent so much time on it. So that's those 4 sections, and I have it all broken down that way.
That is amazing. So we have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He is the author of Reviving Our Republic, 95 Thesis for the Future of America, his Project 2026 movement, and he is with us today here on our big program. So, one of the things also that that Washington and the boys did not ever envision would be foreign countries coming in and paying off officials and and having them
Well,
do things for other lands.
well,
Israel.
actually, well, you're right.
we'll just get it out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, actually,
I'm not.
Washington.
I'm not worried about being shot in the neck because people have been wanting to shoot me for years. So, but go ahead, Mike.
Well, what's fascinating was we look at our founding through the lens of us being a big world power and as its founding of a world power.
Yes.
But we were not a world
Yes.
power. We were a tiny little strip of 3 million people scattered about on a seacoast with major powers wanting to ruin us. And so they
Yes.
were very concerned of foreign policy and foreign people doing things. But they didn't they knew the temptation for power would corrupt. I think if they would come along now and see what's going on, they would say, oh, it did happen that badly. And Americans quit being Americans and started being sycophantic money collectors and empire builders. And they knew that was a possibility. They hoped they would build a system. And the only way this could happen is that system of checks and balances would be diminished. And that's what's happened. And it's just as simple as that. We don't have the checks and balances that we used to have. And that's what's got to be fixed.
Yeah. We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. So, Mike, before we get back into the book, talk to us a little bit about your background because you've done everything from the Navy to historic preservation to political activism. What inspired you to take on this mission of reviving our republic?
Well, it's rooted in just my sense of mission for my community. When I ran
Yeah.
Preservation South Carolina, it was, I like old buildings, but it's not about old buildings. It's about the embedded history of place and what that informs people who live around those places, right? When you live in a community, the community helps mold you, the buildings, the memories, just like your own home with the pictures you have in your home, that informs
Yeah.
you when you're in a town and what grandfather built this place and who sat next to who in church. Those all create that. And so the next chapter, when I saw the demolition of our republic, was this is the place now I need to focus on. And I'm hubris enough to think that me sitting here on my farm in Prosperity, South Carolina, I can actually do something about it. And so there you go. I'm just like, you know what? I'm here. I'm here to serve. Let's do it. And so that's what I put it out there. And I told my kids, I'm like, listen, this is about service. I have a very unique history, a very unique life that gave me some experiences that very few people have had. And I want to take those in service to what I'm supposed to do as a citizen. That's our job as citizens, to bring our unique sense into the public space and contribute. And this is my contribution, for better or for worse.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We have got a great guest with us today. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He is the author of a fantastic new book on reviving our republic. He joins us today here on the good old StreamYard of all places. And I will have to say that your book is amazing.
Thank you
This
so
thing
much.
has been this thing has been called a citizen-led revolution of accountability. What was the moment or realization that pushed you to write this book and take all the ideas from your head and put them on paper, baby?
I don't know if it was one thing. I think it was just my awareness of history and the coinciding well, I tell you, when I read Washington's farewell address, it really clicked for me how much we had neglected. And I realized I didn't hear anybody talking about this. I mean, I hear the opportunist politician, holding up Washington's farewell address, just like they pull out of their pocket the Constitution. But, it might as well be toilet paper to them for all I know, because they're not living by it. They're not living by it.
Yeah.
And so that's just where it came from. And so, but running for office also made me painfully aware of just on the ground solutions. I mean, just a good example, just on the money stuff and the politics. I'm a structuralist and an originalist when it comes to interpreting the Constitution. So the Citizens United decision they made, as egregious as the outcome was, I think the Supreme Court actually got it right if you're a textualist interpreting it. And whenever I hear the Supreme Court make a decision like this, I don't see it as if, oh, the Supreme Court got it wrong. I just see it as, you know what, this was their decision. How do you fix it? But the parties don't want it fixed because they rather use it as a bludgeon to beat each other with and raise money off of. When there's a very
Yeah.
simple solution to Citizens United, a constitutional amendment that separates natural personhood from artificial personas. Because that's why
Yeah.
Citizens United was founded that way, because we had built a case study of where corporations and trusts have personhood attached to them to protect them. And they read
Yeah.
it as it is to be read. So we just need to separate that. And it's really as simple as that. Plus another, I don't know if it'll take an amendment or it'll take a rule in the House and the Senate that nobody can raise funds and accept money except from any individual citizen who can vote for them. If money is speech, fine. Expressing yourself when
Yeah.
paying for things, then only those people who can vote for you can do that. And it's amazing when I share that thought, so many people go, well, that's common sense. Well, why don't we hear that? And I don't know why I saw it, and I put it in my book along with a lot of
Oh,
other things.
money and politics. That is. Yeah, if they ever can fix money in politics, that would be amazing. But
And it can be
I don't
there.
know, baby.
There's always a corruptive influence of money and power, but the mechanisms to limit that negative influence are pretty simple. One of the
There you go.
mechanisms, what I said, if you can't vote, if only people who can vote for you can pay. But then you got the little issues of, well, can somebody give them money and then you pay? Well, then you criminalize that. That's money laundering. We already got that criminalized. And also, and here's the other thing that we have to break the culture of professional politician. I understand on a local level. I mean, if you got a town of 1,000 people, usually the mayor's there forever because he's the only one willing to have to deal with it every day. But on a
Yeah.
national level, these people should leave here from a job, go to Washington, work full time, and then come back home and that's it. So the term limits have to be there. We have to break the thing of
Oh,
them
yes.
making money off of retirement by staying there longer. And we can't let them go and get a revolving door job in a lobbyist group where they can then come back and lobby their friends they made relationships with to get legislation passed that they're being paid to pass. I
It's
mean, all
always,
those things are pretty simple. And but one
yes.
thing won't fix it. It's going to take a lot of stuff to come in together, which is why my project 2026 is the idea I wanted to push. Because if we can get in the House and Senate 10, 15 people, like a Federalist caucus or a 95 Thesis caucus, I don't care, just a caucus of people. I don't know if it could turn into another party, but 10 or 15 people in the House thinking one thing will control the House and control the Senate because everybody has to go through them. And if you got a compromise, fine. Let's put up thesis number so and so about limiting how much money and you can't trade on stocks while you're in the House. That's got to be in the bill if
Oh,
you
you're
want
gonna
this
take away
budget
all.
passed.
You're going to take away all the fun stuff, Mike.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
we have
Gone.
got a great, great guest with us today. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He is the author of Reviving Our Republic, and he joins us today here on our big program. And your title references Martin Luther's 95 Thesis, which we talked a little bit about earlier. Um, why did you choose this symbolic, connection, and how does this apply to America in 2025, 2026, and moving forward?
Well, what happened? I mean, the powerful Catholic Church in 1500s Europe controlled everything.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther he was just a simple, educated monk that said, why can I pay indulgences and God forgives sins, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing? So he just basically had some common sense things, and being an academic, which they were the teachers in the 1500s, were the monks and the ministers because they were pretty much the only ones who could read. He put it in a thesis, which is basically a academic argument saying, here's a thesis of this, here's what I think, here's the rationale behind my thoughts, here's what I think is important. And I just like that format. I like referencing the Reformation because we need a new political reformation for our nation. And it is a little bookish, wonkish, and a little nerdish, but that's who I am. So be it. Um, and so, there are 7 million Lutherans around. So I'm like, hey, at least I got 7 million Lutherans in the country that get it. But yeah, so I like that parallel. I like the fact that people thinking about the root of history, the root of tradition, how that ties in to what happened in Europe, how poisonous the Catholic Church had turned at the time, and how poisonous the federal government has turned, and how we have sycophantic salesmen that we call representatives that are now involved, getting empowered by the power they're accruing from supposedly representing us, but they're really representing the interests that are sitting up their seats to sit in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one big indulgence is what it is, and that's why I like the parallel of
Oh,
the
the
indulgences of the
whole
church and this one.
the whole thing is a circus.
Yeah, it is.
I remember when I think it was Cenk Uygur was moderating a debate in California between two people that were running for office, and they said that typically what happens is people will come to their offices and they'll be like, "Hey, we need you to vote yes on this. We need you to vote no on that, and here's a check." And
I
if
know.
the check was not big enough, they'd be like, "Well, come back. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. And then they'll be like, okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow. And they come back and the check's a little bit bigger. And once the check got big enough, they took it and they voted on whatever the hell they needed to go vote on. Uh, that's just what it is.
It is. It is. It's a corruptive influence on it. And one of the things to think about on representatives, that is the part in the federal government where we have direct representation of our communities in Washington. When this country
Yes.
was founded, when they did the Constitution, each district had 35,000 people in it. That's the population of my rural county here in Newberry County in South Carolina. Now it's 750,000. And it's growing because they have it fixed now at a certain number of seats. I think they need to be reduced back and keep them to a certain number. Now, that does mean we're going to have to develop different systems of how House makes decisions because, you could end up with a couple thousand people in the House of Representatives instead of a little over 400. But I think we can manage that. I think there's systems to do, and especially with computer systems and networking systems now on computer and how we can communicate with each other without having to be in the room. I think that's feasible. The other part of this is a lot of people forget when they say the checks and balances. One of the biggest checks and balances we had embedded in the Constitution was between the legislature itself, between the House, direct representation of people, and the Senate, which was supposed to represent the state, right? And what happened, 17th Amendment made them directly elected. So the Senate has some traditions that set them apart, like the way they debate. I just forgot the word. When they debate and they can hold up the debate if you talk long enough.
Oh, yeah.
I just had a 64-year-old.
I know what you're talking about, baby.
That's right. So, but anyway, so the Senate still has those things, but basically, they're a populist body, just like the House now. And the thing about democracy and what the founders understood about the dangers of pure democracy is the tendency of people under stress and can be agitated on short-term issues that can lead to the corruption of the system. Because you got to be careful in a country like ours. If you just have all majority rules, then it could be the tyranny against the minority. And so you have to have a rule of law so that everybody is treated equally within law, even though the majority can win elections. And so I just think we need to repeal the 17th Amendment and make the states, make senators more like ambassadors from the state government. And that, I think, will cool down our political power that's accumulated up there and depoliticize things like the Supreme Court, nominations, treaties, all those things. So that's the other. Now that's a long-term thing. I think that's a generational change because a lot of people don't understand. They think we're taking democracy away when you do that. I don't think that's happening at all, and that's another discussion. But I also understand a lot of these things are breaking what we've done for so long. People think it's unnatural when I see it as that's exactly how it was and how it needs to be again.
Yes. Yeah. We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He's the author of Reviving Our Republic, and he's with us today here on our big program. Your book is positioned as a direct response to Project 2025. For those who may not be familiar, how would you describe the core differences between Project 2025 and your vision of a Project 2026?
Well, so I use that as a rhetorical device because I wrote this book before Project 2025 even got into my consciousness. And once
that's awesome.
Yeah, but once I saw what Project 2025 intended to do, which was it actually addresses a lot of the problems I saw that prompted me to write the book. But their solution is a centralization of the executive to fix them without a lot of checks and balances. And
Yeah.
that is, to me, absolutely the most dangerous thing you can do. And so I push it as, well, this is Project 2026 then, because it's really about having faith in the liberty of individuals, in that people will govern themselves properly if given the chance, and not mistrusting half the nation. We've created an environment where we believe half the nation is the enemy of the other half, which is part of the party mechanisms to empower themselves and create enemies.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. Whenever I hear Republicans talk about how horrific Democrats are and say the type of things they say, I know a lot of Democratic friends here, and they're nothing like that. So we have to break down the symbols they use, like using AOC to represent every Democrat. This bartender from the Bronx assumes she's the
Yes.
same. That
I,
she's the
I get
same.
so tired of that.
I know. It's like, my guy that was the Democrat here that ran against us. It was me, Republican Sherry Biggs, and him as a Democrat. He's the manager of the Sherwin-Williams store in the town next door. I mean, a great guy, and actually more libertarian that he's letting on his Democratic friends that he is. So we're really a diverse group of people with one thing in common: aspire to be the best we can be, and have a system where we can do that safely. And we need to remind ourselves that. And so there you go. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
I love it. I love it. It is a great guest with us today. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He's the author of Reviving Our Republic, and he joins us today here on our big program here on Twitch, and of course we are on the Facebook, as Johnny would say, and we are also on iHeartRadio, the Odyssey app, which always delights me every time I know that we are on the Odyssey app. And so your book, you argue that Project 2025 basically concentrates the power in the executive branch. What dangers do you see in that approach?
I see honestly what is happening now. The belief that we can just arbitrarily bomb boats coming out of Venezuela without any checks on who are these people. I mean, uh, Rand Paul did an amazing speech on the Senate several days ago. And it's most disturbing where I see people who call themselves Americans saying, well, we want to get rid of narco drug trade. And I'm like, then who are the people you bombed? If you bombed people, if you destroyed this fishing boat, you should know the names of those people, because you obviously thought they're drug dealers. We
That's
have
right.
to deal with this trafficking, but at the
you,
same,
you
you know,
obviously knew they were drug dealers.
right. So tell us who they
That's
were.
fucking
Tell us why.
amazing.
We the power of the executive. One of the flaws of the Constitution, in the sense of how they limited power, was assuming the best and the brightest would elevate to be president. They had George Washington as an example. So many of the traditions that were built around the limited presidential power is really not encoded except in tradition, right? And our current president has just whipped right through those.
Yeah.
And I understand why he's there. And I see the advantages of him being there, because it shows us what we have to fix. I wrote an article in the European, you know,
That is amazing.
I mean, I wrote an article in the European. I told the Europeans when he got elected in my article, I'm like, this is exactly the pill America needs, because we have been such a spoiled, consumptive society. We don't understand how fragile we are. We don't understand how corruptive money has gotten. We just think America will always be here no matter who's in charge, and everything will be fine because America's America. Well, no, we will not be here. If anything is predicted, all great powers fall flat on their face after several hundred years. And we have a mechanism to help mitigate that. But those things that mitigate falling on our face has been dropped. And so, we just need to remember the dangers of assuming only our guy can fix everything. And as soon as you have that, you've lost everything, at least in this
Yeah.
nation.
We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast, and he is the author of Reviving Our Republic. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us today. He is absolutely amazing. I definitely want to have you on with Don Mazzella and IQ Arizoli, and maybe even get you on with old Dan Perkins at some point, because
I'd love
holy
to.
smokes, I think you would have a ball with all of them.
Oh
But
man.
so talking about the Project 2026 versus Project 2025. How does Project 2026 empower citizens instead of the government? And what practical steps can people take to participate in that movement?
Mainly, I'm just trying to communicate that we are in charge of the next decision we make politically. And so I try to
Okay.
set out the roadmap, the fact that if we can find people willing to serve that believe in the majority of these theses and find funding mechanisms to help ensure and inoculate them against the big money pressures that the two parties have, especially the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, what they have, then
Yes.
all it takes is to organize 10 or 15 of these people to get into the House, and they'll control the House. They'll control it. And so, with this next midterm, this is probably the most important midterm this nation has had since Reconstruction after the Civil War. I'm absolutely convinced of that, because we
Wow.
need to have true representation of people in the House. And one of the things that's most disturbing about Project 2025, it has a lot of big notions that many people on, the 36,000-foot view look, oh, well, that makes sense. But the problem is they couch it in a way to where it was done stealthily, right? To where nobody would see it. And the way they organized it was in a stealth mode to where they can deliver it in and slowly roll it out without it being really under public review. And several of the authors made clear that if this was put up for debate, it would lose hands down. But
Yes.
implication is we know better. And so we're going to make this happen, and they'll like us and thank us later. And that's a pretty dangerous mindset to have when you're supposed to be a free republic of free citizens. That slippery slope just we can't allow to happen. So
Yeah.
there you go.
We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here in our big broadcast. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He is the author of Reviving Our Republic. And the book is a quick read. You held that up earlier. It's quite the small
Uh,
book. If you really committed to that, how long does it take to read that sucker?
well, I read the audio book. And how long did it take me to read the audio book? Maybe 4.5 hours. I read it. Four and a
Oh,
half hours of recording. I read it. 4.5 to 5 hours. And
that's
that's
not
not
bad.
reading the Washington's farewell address, which is long and written in 18th century language of Washington. That's like, it's hard to get through sometimes because, you know,
That would be
he,
amazing with your South Carolina accent reading that. That would be amazing.
and I tell you, I want to show you. You see, here's the choices. So here's what Project 2025 thinks will fix the country. See, and
Jesus.
here's all it takes. Right here.
There
Here's the difference.
it is, baby. That's
There it
it.
is.
Right
That's it.
there. Just that. So, one of the things that we talked a little bit about earlier was with the whole reclaiming accountability and power and all these things. You've talked about restoring balance between federal and local power. What would a truly revived federalism look like in practice today?
When you get your tax bill, you will be given the majority of your tax burden to the state and the
Okay.
minority of it to the feds. Because the system that was created after they put into effect the income tax, the federal income tax, was they created a pipeline of money out of people's wallets, intervening between their payment system and the recipient, who is the labor, and took that and put it directly into federal coffers. And as soon as that happened, all of a sudden, the federal government, and then you have wars happening, World War One when it first started, and then World War Two. Wow, we can get
Yeah.
a lot of money. We can do a lot of stuff. And as soon as that happens, local politicians go, you know what? We can lower your taxes here in South Carolina. And then federal politicians who go to Washington will say, and if we need anything, I'll be able to bring money back. And so we've created this weird upside down system where our representatives have just turned into salesmen to go and capture our tax money back and bring it back. The states used to
Yeah.
have tremendous responsibility on social plans, social welfare, police, um, mental health facilities. I mean, in South Carolina, we had one of the first, they were called asylums at the time, but a mental health facility designed by Robert Mills, who designed the Washington Monument here in South Carolina. He designed our first asylum in 1820. We were cutting edge down here of this stuff. And by the time of the 1960s, our mental health place in Columbia was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of square feet in a 160-acre area. Well, all of that is gone. It's all gone now because as soon as people started realizing the state didn't have to pay for it, the federal government started pumping money in to say, federal government would have some social construct. Well, here's something we'd love you to study. We'll give you grants. And the federal government started granting, the state started lowering the money. So as soon as Reagan got in and said, the Fed's doing too much, that's a state issue, they collapsed all that income going out, and the state legislature didn't have the wherewithal to say, okay, we need to raise it. They just wouldn't do it. So our mental health facility is now apartments and a ballpark and stores. And
Yeah.
in Columbia, we have schizophrenic homeless walking the streets of Columbia. So, how I see we have to do is we have to take sovereignty of our own responsibility. There's not a highway in South Carolina that's being built now without 50 to 60% of necessary having federal funds subsidizing just building a road in South Carolina. I'm doing the history of my little town of Prosperity. Prosperity, when they first got the roads in 1880s, 1890s, they paid for it, they bought the right of ways, and took care of it. Nobody could even imagine a little town doing that now. We've got to turn that back around.
And that seems to be the thing, every time I see, which this is probably going to get me in trouble, but if you
Come on.
if you've
Yeah.
read the internet, if you've read Twitter the last 3 months, I'm everything from a sex trafficker to whatever. So this is not going to get me into any more trouble than I'm already in. But one of the things that I have always said when I see various things, various people walking the streets, is I'm like, a lot of this is Reagan's fault by closing all them damn mental institutions.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
And, everything you just said, that That's what it
That's it.
is, baby.
You know, and the whole and the culture. We have such a consumptive culture of that the pledge, no new taxes, no new taxes. Now, of course, nobody wants the government just to raise arbitrarily taxes. But the thing, I ran several businesses, and it amazes me how people say we need to run government like a business. Did they ever make the connection of what is the purpose of business was to collect revenue? It's not about how you spend efficiently as much as you have to have revenue to have something to spend. That a successful business
Yes.
can't spend more than it makes, and we have to come to terms with that. Washington had a lot to say about that, and in my chapters talking about we have to be realistic in that on how we spend money and how we pay for it. Now we are in a conundrum now when I say the federal government, we need to diminish the power of the income tax on the federal level. I don't, the states can do it constitutionally. The states can do an income tax however way they need to have money. But now with our debt to GDP is more than it was at the end of World War II. After we blew everything else up, we were the only really working economy in the world, and we were getting ready to go into 30 years of being the greatest economic power the world had ever seen, where we can grow out of it. That ain't the case anymore. And we've got a huge burden on what we're getting ready to face. So we have to figure out a real plan, and it's going to be painful to get this debt down, because if we ever lose the superiority of the money fund and being the dollar the world currency, if that ever goes away, which I guarantee you other countries are trying to figure out how to do away with that now, especially over the past 6 months, we will become a third world state because our debt will be unsustainable, inflation will explode. So we've got a lot of serious things we have to really think about, and I don't see anybody talking about it or thinking about it. So it's all in here.
We have got a great guest with us today. Mike Bedenbaugh is with us. He is absolutely amazing. He is this guy's busier than a fruit merchant. He's got this
Yeah.
incredible book, Reviving Our Republic. And he joins us live here on our big broadcast. So, talking about reclaiming accountability and power, one of your main concerns is corruption and corporate influence, which, by the way, bravo, sir. We talked a little bit about it earlier. You've talked about your reforms to tackle the outsized role of money and special interests in politics. Um, One of the things that you mentioned in your book, and we talked about it earlier, is you reference Citizens United and the Citizens United decision as a turning point in government accountability. What specific changes, besides the ones you already have mentioned, but what are some more specific changes would you propose to reverse or reform the impact of Citizens United?
Well, I think the amendments to deal with personhood and artificial personas and putting those in the Constitution will go 80% of it right there. I believe. Now, I
Okay.
haven't had a conversation. This is just my own study, but this is the type of conversation I look forward to making a national conversation. What will that do?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do enough, what else do we need to do? How people are elected, and but also, and here's the thing that's so toxic about the corporatizing. I call it the corporatizing of our society, where people quit thinking for themselves what is the best way to do something and just go by data. Here's a report, here's my rules. No matter what's happening, this is what you must do. Here it is. So do it. And people say, well, yeah, but that's stupid. Why are we doing it that way? Because my rules say so. I mean, that's like we're, corporate
Because
hand-me-down.
my rules say
Say
so.
so. Yeah. And who made the rules? I
That's
don't
right.
know. And I tell you, the biggest example, I mean, I did preservation. I'm now a realtor also. And I could see that my wife is a teacher. So you see it in the school system all the time, to where orders come down and teachers can't truly teach anymore because of the data and criteria they have to meet that the bureaucracy demands. The other thing is something as simple as building codes. Building codes have been so overdone. And I've had a house that we've been trying to sell for 3 years that is a phenomenal, magnificent place, but it is been stopped 3 times because people want to live upstairs and have a business downstairs. It's an old 1870s place, and the building codes won't allow it because sprinklers and all these things, and makes it too onerous when that's how the house was built originally and it acted that way for 100 years. But just in the past 40 years, rules have been set that are overgeneralized, don't adapt to local needs, and we have to break that trend. And a lot of it has to do with the corporatized insurance industry that says, well, you have to do these things or we won't cover you for insurance. It's a
Yep.
government corporate collusion that is, I wish it was just as simple as a house of cards and take a few things out and it'll collapse, but it won't. It's going to take a lot of work, and which goes into the other part of federalism. Some states will do it quicker than others, and we need to empower federalism. We need to empower where
Well,
states
what
have responsibilities.
you bring up um the all the different agencies and all the different rules. I remember Bill Maher on his HBO show bitching for about a year because he was trying to get a shed moved over 6 inches.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get it done
Nope.
because California just wouldn't let him do it. It's just amazing to me.
Well, and I tell you, it's as much as it's fun to talk about California. There's things here that is just as stupid. I had a local representative deal with a school wanted to put up a shed for their bus, and the state had systems that this shed was going to cost $250,000 because of all the regulatory issues and engineers and everything they had to do, when it's just a pole shed that the local carpenter could have put up for less than 5 grand. And it's that type of insanity that has become normalized
Yeah.
that I think, I mean, that's what's driven people not to trust government and want to push back on it. I remember during a 60 Minutes interview when Trump first got elected in 2016, Oprah Winfrey during 60 Minutes was interviewing a bunch of Trump supporters. And she said, "Why are you supporting Donald Trump?" And one guy said, "We just want someone to come in and overturn the tables." I understand,
Yes.
I
Yes.
understand that emotion,
I,
but
I remember I remember Michael Moore said that Trump is a rock that's going to be going through the window.
yep, absolutely. He's absolutely right. And that's why what concerns me is that type of solution is nothing but demolition without being a
Yes.
builder. And it's and me dealing with demolition and trying to save buildings, 9 times out of 10, if I'm in a town and we're trying to save a historic building and the outside developer comes in and wants to tear it down, 9 times out of 10, if he's given permission to tear it down without a plan, it's still a vacant lot, because it's too easy to think tearing something down has to happen first before you plan to build. What makes our nation so incredible is that at its founding, we were guided by builders. We were guided by people who understood. I don't like calling them founders. I call them architects. They constructed something that is a miraculous document and a system. And whenever you see people want to tear something down before they build, watch out. And so that's one of the things that we have to be cautious of. We can't just throw stuff out. We have to have the plan beyond that. And
Yeah.
that was another thing that inspired me for the book. Here's a plan. Let's try this.
Well, I know that there is a lot of, you mentioned the money in politics, which is a big problem The Citizens United thing is just insane.
Yeah.
Um, some of the ways that and this isn't really a, I guess, a political thing. This is more of a, this is more of an odd head scratcher that I have thought about over the years. But at one point, when Keith Olbermann still had Countdown, when he was still on MSNBC before he had ticked them off and they threw him out of there. Um, one of the things that he talked about one time, which to me is just still insane that this is a real thing. The National Football League is considered a nonprofit organization. He brought this up. He talked about there was some law somewhere that the NFL is technically a nonprofit. And I'm like, how in the world was this allowed
I know.
to buy all of this? Because I'm like, the NFL is a nonprofit. How in the world made that happen?
Yep. It's
Yep.
there is so much to dissect
Just
from
amazing to
yeah.
me.
It is. It is. Well, and one of the other elements of this, just to shift a little bit, is the issue of foreign entanglements. You know, one thing
Yes.
that I am so tired of hearing is people saying, when I talk about the importance of neutrality, when I hear people say, "Oh, you're an isolationist," and I just despise that word, because being a neutral party does not mean you're an isolationist. You want to engage in the world. You want to build trade. You want to build relationships.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but you can't if you go in with all your bets on one side. And that's one of the things Washington articulated so well, on the dangers of siding with just one country blindly. And we have had that problem ever since. Well, we had that problem in World War One. You know, when we came in on the side of France and England, instead of seeing and upset the old 300-year-old balance of powers between the main powers of the continent of Germany, France, and England, and made Germany totally lose, we upset such a balance that it just fed into exactly what caused World War II. And so when people talk about, well, whatever happened in an issue, the trigger, what was the trigger that caused the war? Well, I say, and what I talk about is, it's not about the trigger that's important. It's that who built the gun before the trigger was fastened. You know, for every trigger that occurs where something flares up in the world, it's usually 30 years of gun building to get that trigger ready to go.
Yes.
And that's the cycle
Yes.
I'm trying to say we need to stop. We need to stop assuming we have to get engaged with so many and protect people from other things, and be able to be an arbitrator. And I think we will be more effective in the world if we were actually able to do that. But now we're so embedded in things. I fear what's going to happen with blowback from what's happening now in the Middle East over the next 20 years. I really, I really fear what's going to happen and what conflagration is going to be in the world with what we're allowing to happen now.
Well, Mike, you are amazing.
Well,
This has been a blast. I definitely want to do this again because I would love to have you on with Dan Perkins and IQ Hour personally, because IQ is the IQ gets more comments on our BitChute videos than I've ever seen before in my life. I don't know why he does, but to tell you a little bit about IQ, IQ is a guy who was raised in Iran. He moved to Britain. He's got more fatwas on his head than anybody, because he has these books called uh, they're basically exposing the fact that Islam is evil, and he read the Quran, and then he wrote about it, and he has always we have had imams on that have debated him, and they always leave frustrated because he takes their words and uses it against them. Dan Perkins is your classic conservative. Trump can do no wrong, all that stuff.
All put me in the room, brother. I can't wait.
so
Put
so
me in the
that
room.
those would be fun interviews. Another one I would like to have you on with is Don Mazzella. Don and I are the only two people, I think, in the United States of America who, when Trump had lost to Biden and he was, him and Han, me and Don were like, just go home. Just go home.
Yep.
We were the only two guys in America that said, don't run, just go home. And, well, son of a bitch, he ran and he won again. But,
Yep.
well, we got a couple minutes here before we got to let you go. What you brought up something earlier about the whole Trump thing, about how he is everything that is wrong, that we need to fix in politics. One of the things, and I don't even remember who it was that said this, but someone at one point had said that Trump is basically what Fox News and all the Republicans have been telling everybody that they've wanted forever. Tough guy, businessman, we need this, we need that. And we got him.
Got him. Welcome to the party.
So that's what it is. Now,
Yeah.
I will have to say that a lot of the stuff with Trump is Trump at some points. He does have some good points. Don't let my mother hear that. She hates Trump. But but he does have some good points. One of the things that I always think about is when as I always like to refer to them, the la 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 guys. It always seems like these like crazy Muslims will pop up and they'll do things and they'll cause all sorts of destruction, and then they run and hide. And one of the things that they did during the first Trump administration was they went and they bombed an airport in Iraq. They went and did a bunch of damage. So Trump put a bunch of Navy SEALs on a plane and sent them over there. And he bombed these guys back into the Stone Age, which, since it is the Middle East, was probably just last Thursday. But he never had any more problems with the crazy Muslims anymore. They just left him alone.
It is.
So I'm like, that's kind of a good point. Now, the bash in the White House to build a ballroom they don't need. Calm down, brother. I don't really need that.
I could just hear my grandmother looking at the TV right now saying, all that tacky gold leaf, what in the world is he doing to I mean, bless his heart. So, it's here's the thing. Everybody has something that is good about them. Everybody, no matter,
Yes.
most people love their
Well,
kids.
even
Most people.
what one of like with Joe, as I always just refer to him, worst to first, Joe Biden. He, Biden gets in there, and regardless of how he got in there, because we are on some radio affiliates, I can't exactly say various things, but it would be better for me to say, well, Trump got elected for the third time. But the thing with Biden was, as I have always told people, yeah, Biden did all sorts of things, and towards the end of his presidency, he didn't even know what time zone he was in. But realistically, Biden needed to win so we could get the car back on the road. Because there was some crazy stuff going on there towards the end. I remember one of my radio heroes, Michael Savage, who is a huge fan of Trump. 2 weeks before weeks before the election, Trump removed all the protections for endangered animals because Don Jr. wanted to go out and hunt a bunch of them. And Savage was madder than a hornet. And I'm like, okay, you've lost Michael Savage. We've got a problem.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of those when it all boils down to it. But it boils down to this: is who is the most accountable to the concept of a democratic republic? And then
Yes.
how do you want to get what you want through those systems? And it's just as simple as that. And that's the
Yes.
bar that I want to see. And what concerns me is there's way too many people in this nation that doesn't think those are important anymore. And that's to our peril.
There you go. Well, before we let you go, my man, how do we get your book? How do we get involved with you with everything you're doing online?
Well,
As Alex Jones likes to say, get the plugs in, baby.
Reviving Our Republic
There it
is
is.
on revivingourrepublic.com is the webpage. You can see the outline of Project 2026 there. But then if you just want to go on Amazon, Reviving Our Republic, the book, the audio book, and the Kindle is all there. If you want to hear it, read it on a tablet, or just sit by the fire with the book in your hand, all the options are there to sit and invest in rebuilding our nation to be something that our grandchildren will recognize the same that we did. That's the goal. And thank you so much for having me on. And it's been a blast, man. Thank you. This is awesome.
Oh, we're gonna do this again because I've got a whole bunch of questions that I still have yet to ask you. So we're gonna do a round 2 at some point, baby.
I'll stand by, man. You know how to get me. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Well, my thanks to the author, Mike Bedenbaugh, with us today, and we appreciate you for joining us here on our big broadcast. Thanks for joining us on Facebook, which apparently was successful because we had some people paying attention to us over there, which is always a good thing. We also had Twitch it on the Twitch today, which is always good. I enjoy the Twitch it on the